A quote mine is when somebody digs up something that a respected person, usually like a scientist or somebody in authority, has said, takes it out of context, and then throws it at you in the middle of a debate saying, are you going to disagree with, the grand poobah of whatever? And that can throw a lot of people off, but it shouldn't, because there's a way to deal with it. Let's talk about that.
Mr. Anderson.
My name is Mr. Anderson, and I'm mean to people on the internet. I'm always very polite about it, though. I just tend to ask difficult questions and insist on the answers. This shouldn't be a big surprise because I am, in fact, a lawyer. On my channel, you'll find a lot of stuff to do with debate. I do a lot of debate technique breakdowns where I talk about different tactics and techniques and how to deal with different situations, which is what you're looking at right now. And I also review people's debates and talk about, how I would put those things in practice in those situations. And you'll see a bunch of my own debates where I put the things I'm telling you to do into practice so that you can see they actually work against resisting opponents. Now, I was watching this debate the other day about a guy who's debating this flat earther, and the flat earther just starts throwing a whole bunch of quotes at this guy from different scientists, and it kind of drives him nuts. Here, I'll show you.
The point that I would make here is that the CMB is weirdly correlated with the plane of the Earth around the Sun. If you don't believe that the Earth moves around the Sun, then the CMB's correlation disappears, right? And it's no longer noteworthy, right? So you're saying the plane of the Earth around the Sun doesn't exist. Therefore, Krause's quote is meaningless.
That's, you know what, I want to give you more credit than that, Pastor Tony, but see, now you're starting to slip into religious land when you start talking like that.
No, is that not what he said? Is that not what he said?
I'll read the quote again. All right, but when you look at the CMB, you also see that the destruction that is observed is, in fact, in a weird way correlated with the plane of the Earth.
Around the Sun.
Is this Copernicus coming back to haunt us? They're saying that it could either be the Earth is moving or the Sun is moving.
No, it looks like everything. That's not what he's saying. Krause does not suggest that the Sun could move around the Earth.
Okay, so are you saying that we have proven that the Earth is moving around the Sun? Are you saying we've proven that? Okay, so now you're a science denier because all physicists disagree with you on that.
No, they don't.
Anyway, maybe that means this is a good moment for us to talk about how to deal with quote miners, and basically, like, in a courtroom, this wouldn't be a problem because it's such a sort of staid and normal rule that you're not allowed to do crap like this, that the only thing the lawyer would have to do is stand up and say objection, hearsay, or objection, that's opinion evidence and this witness is not qualified as an expert, and that will be the end of it. But of course in a debate, that's not going to work because there's no judge and you can't object, right? Or you could try, you get laughed at though. But it still applies because the logic behind why those objections were invented and why they are sustained applies. And so what you basically have to do is just introduce the logic behind that objection and behind why it would be sustained. So let me give you an example. Let's say that he said Stephen Hawking said something, which he did. He said Stephen Hawking said this.
Okay, so here's Stephen Hawking right here. Here's Stephen Hawking. To the question whether or not the motion of the Earth in space can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments, we have already remarked that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result. McToon said, if you want to find out whether or not the Earth is moving, you try to test motion and you get a negative result. This is Stephen Hawking.
If only you hadn't cherry-picked that quote, you would have noticed that actually we can.
You're the PhD. You tell me. How do we do it? Because I have not seen it. Stephen Hawking hasn't seen it.
No, that's not what Stephen Hawking said.
Okay, here's a different quote. Which is
no.
This is. Hold on, come on, listen.
No.
Be civil. So which is real, the Ptolemaic or the Copernican system?
Okay, yeah, PhD Tony looks like he wants to punch a hole in the wall right now.
Then present it.
You You brought up last second.
Present the evidence. You just
I'll do it on my after show. I'll
Present
present
it.
evidence on my after show. How about that? Pull up on my show after. I'll present it to you, Tony.
No, present it now.
So let's talk about how to handle this sort of thing. Now, in fairness to PhD Tony, he does stumble upon a bunch of this stuff sort of later on in dribs and drabs, but this is a lot more effective when it's kind of collected all together in one place and it's done early and often and persistently and calmly. So let's just talk about kind of how to do it all in one place and all at once. So here's what we do. So number one, the short, quick thing that you can do is, when they come up with a quote mine, the second a quote comes up, you just say, look, man, come on, quote mines are bullshit. Like, don't give me that crap. Show me the evidence, not the quote mine. You're taking that out of context and you know it. And often that can be the end of it. But if they persist, then you have to get a little more sophisticated, and here's how that goes. The response is, sure, okay, well, I can accept that there's probably good evidence that Stephen Hawking said that. But here's the problem. Number one, you ain't him, and he ain't here. So, sure, he may have said that, but that doesn't mean anything on its own, because that doesn't say anything about what he meant, because we have no context, and you haven't provided any evidence with respect to the context. And you haven't provided any evidence that statement means what you say it means, or that it has any relevance to this debate. So all you have right now is that some guy said some words, and a guy is smart. And yes, Stephen Hawking is very smart. He's probably smarter than me. He's certainly smarter than you. But that doesn't mean that I am now arguing with him. He's not arguing with me. He's dead. So he's not, if you want to introduce what Stephen Hawking said as being true, you want to offer it for the truth of its content, then either you need to be him, or you need to provide the line of reasoning and the evidence to back it up. And just picking a line from, some interview that he gave and some off-the-cuff remark that he made ain't going to cut it. Because what you have there, my friend, is nothing. Nothing. And that's the reason that something like this would not be offered as evidence in court. Because I can't talk to Stephen Hawking. I can't ask him what he means. I can't ask him about any of the nuance of what he says. I can't ask him about whether or not what he said applies to this situation at all. Can I? No. So, you know what? Let's not talk about what Stephen Hawking says. Let's talk about what you say, right? And then what you say, I'm not going to argue with him. I'm not against him. I'm against you. I think you're stupid. I don't think he's stupid. I'm not anti-Hawking. I'm anti-you. And that's how you kind of deal with that sort of thing, is you just say, look, just because somebody said something, that's only proof that they said something. That's not proof that they meant any particular thing. If you wanted to prove that that is what they said and meant, then you should have offered evidence to that effect. But I'm not inviting you to do that right now, because unless you got it ready, that's a whole big sidetrack, and I don't really want to get into whether or not that's what Stephen Hawking meant. You should have presented the evidence, and you don't have it. That's too bad. It's too late. So let's stay focused on what we want to talk about. And unless they're here to say it themselves, doesn't matter. And unless they're here for us to interpret it, or unless you provide the context and the underlying data and all of those sorts of things, that will be different. Or if you were an expert yourself and you were quoting from a peer-reviewed scientific paper, then that's kind of like an exception to the general hearsay rule, where there's some indicia of reliability with respect to the thing that is being said and that it means what you say it means. But just some quote from a news conference, yeah, there's a reason why that would be inadmissible in court, and it's the same reason why we shouldn't take it seriously in a debate. And that's kind of how I deal with that sort of situation. And I kind of make fun of them along the way, right?